And hello everyone, welcome back to another nim tutorial. In this tutorial we'll be talking about working with files in nim. Now for the previous couple of tutorials, what I've been doing when I was running my code is I was saying r hints of main.nim. If you were doing the same command, today you will not be using this command, you'll be using c-r. The reason for this is when we say R, it compiles the code and it puts it in a nim directory away from us. So it does not put it here. It does not put the compiled program here. So what we should be doing is we should compile it first and put it here in our folder before we run it. The reason for this is when we try to access a file, it is going to search for a file in the current folder that the executable is in. So if the executable is in a nim folder and not our current folder, it will not find the file we're trying to give it to read or write to. So when you first compile it, and you'll notice if I were to run this, we now get a main here. This is an executable. Basically, this means compile to this executable and then run it for us. This is basically short for, it's short for this, but of course it's without this R. So we don't have to do this part here. So take note, we now need to compile it and then run it. So compile it in this folder and then run it. Perfect. So let's create a file, readme.txt. And here you can just put anything you want. Hello world. This is a story about. Just kidding, this isn't a story. There we go. So now we have a bit of text in here. And now here, we just resize that a little bit so we have more space. Here we could just say import strutils. This will just help us later on as well. And we can import that on first line. Let file content is equal to read file. So this is how we read a file. We just say readme.txt. So it will search for this readme.txt here. And then echo file content. And I'm just also going to add a \n here. There we go. Just to add a new line. We're not currently using anything here, so it's going to be highlighted, but we do not worry. Now if we run this, we get hello world. This is a story about, just kidding, it isn't a story. So we read from this file here. Now an alternative way to, instead of reading the entire file at once, what you could do is you could say variable if for file, and we can just call it file type. Then if open the file readme.txt. So it will first check if it can open this file, because if this file doesn't exist, it cannot open it. So we first check if we can open it. If we can, we say echo file has been opened. Echo f.read line. So now you can read a single line, and also close f. So this will close the file for us. If we keep the file open and a different application tries to read that file, or we try to read that file again, we will run into an error because the file is still open. We cannot open it again, as an example. So now if we were to run this, we get file has been opened, then we get hello world. Each line we put here, it will read another line. So here, hello world, this is a story about. And the reason we do this, let's say we make it txtd. That file does not exist, so it will just not run this because that doesn't exist. You cannot open something that doesn't exist. And then finally, another way you can read it is we can just go let lines is equal to file content is equal to read file readme.txt file content dot split lines. So this is another way you can also read it, and you basically split the lines into a sequence, and then you echo out lines. Now you'll get a sequence of each line in the sequence. So hello world, next line, this is a story about, next line, just kidding, this isn't a story. So that's the basics of reading a file. There's 3 ways, or technically 2 ways of doing it. where you just read the file, or you first check if the file is open and then read line by line. So let's write the file. Let's go write file, my file.txt, and let's put hello \n for new line, world \t for a tab, I am here, and then a backslash. There we go. Then now, if we were to run this code, we go to myfile.txt, you'll see hello, new line, world, here's a tab, as you can see with that arrow there, I am here, and then a backslash. So that is how you write to a file. An alternative way, so let's say you open a file, then you can also go variable a is equal to open myfile.txt fm write. So we're saying open it in write mode. You also have read and append mode. Append mode basically means don't overwrite the file. Anyhow, let's say write a.write hey yo, and then a.close. Save that, run that. Then here, if we go to myfile.txt, now it says hey yo, it overwrote the file. If we were to say fm append instead, then if we go here to my file, now there's a second hey yo. So append won't overwrite the file. It will add to the end of the file. And I believe by default it is read. So by default it opens in read mode. You can also open it in read or write, so you can read and write to the file. And yeah, there's a lot more you can do here, but for the most part I think these are all that we really require to know about. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all again in the next Nim tutorial.